The first thing I remember is the cold. Not the temperature, the absence. The kind of cold that lives in your chest when you realize you've been screaming into a void for so long you forgot what your own voice sounds like. I'd been in that hospital room for 4 days. 4 days of machines breathing for me, 4 days of nurses with kind eyes avoiding the question I couldn't ask. Why hasn't anyone come? The doctor said I had a cardiac event. That's what they call it when your heart decides the burden you're carrying has actual weight. When your body tallies up every sleepless night spent balancing someone else's budget, every panic attack swallowed during a family emergency that was really just another invoice with your name on it. My body had kept better records than I did, and it quit. The phone felt like it weighed 100 pounds when I finally picked it up. The screen lit up, and the number made my stomach drop before my brain could process it. 127 missed calls. But it wasn't 127 calls from worried family members. It wasn't, "Are you alive?" or "Where are you?" It was 127 variations of the same message repeated in an escalating spiral of panic that had nothing to do with my survival. The text from Mom was at the top. "Maya, emergency. Call immediately. Rental payment bounced." Below it, my sister's texts formed a waterfall of capital letters. "Mom says you're ignoring us? Hello? I need you to Venmo me before 5 p.m. My storage unit is getting locked." And there, pinned at the bottom, was the Instagram notification. I don't know why I tapped it. Maybe because some part of me needed proof, needed to see it with my own eyes. The photo loaded slowly, like it knew what it was about to do to me. My mother and sister. Robes, champagne, a resort with palm trees swaying in the background. The caption made my vision blur. "Sometimes you need to cut out the toxic energy and just breathe. Girl's trick with my real one, glasses, sparkles. Hashtag self-care, no negativity, blessed life." The toxic energy was me. The negativity was my collapse. That was when something inside me didn't break. It vanished. Like a switch flipping from on to off. No sparks, no smoke, just darkness. Clean. Final. I waited for the guilt to rush in. The familiar voice that always said, "But they're your family. But they need you. But you're being selfish." It didn't come. For the first time in 32 years, I felt nothing. And it was the most peaceful thing I'd ever experienced. I scrolled past the obvious choices in my contacts, past Mom, Dad, my sister, past the people who would ask me to understand, to be patient, to just give them one more chance. I stopped on a name I hadn't looked at in over a decade. Aunt Susan, my mother's older sister, the one who'd been erased from family photos, whose name was only mentioned in warnings. Susan is better. Susan doesn't understand family. Susan chose her career over us. I'd met her exactly twice. Once at my grandfather's funeral, where she'd stood in the back in a black suit that probably cost more than my car, stone-faced while my mother sobbed theatrically at the casket. The second time was at the reception after, when she'd cornered me in the church parking lot. I was 21. She'd looked at me like a scientist examining a rat lab and said, "You're the one they're grooming." Before I could ask what she meant, my mother had appeared and dragged me away, hissing about how Susan was dangerous and poison. Now, at 32, hooked to machines in a room my family couldn't be bothered to visit, I understood exactly what Susan had meant. She answered on the first ring. "Maya." Not a question, a statement, like she'd been waiting for this call for 11 years. "I need help," I whispered. There was a pause. I heard the faint sound of traffic, the click of heels on pavement. She was outside, walking, living her life. Where are you? St. Luke's Medical Center, ICU, room 614. What happened? My heart stopped. Another pause. Longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Sharper, colder, focused. Did they call your parents? Yes. And? I couldn't say it. The words stuck in my throat like glass. Susan said it for me. They didn't come. No. But they've been calling you. 127 times. I heard her exhale slowly. Not surprise. Confirmation. I'm 30 minutes away. Do not answer your phone. Do not respond to any messages. Do not speak to anyone about your medical care or your finances until I arrive. Do you understand me, Maya? Yes. Lock your door if you can. I'm bringing a lawyer. The line went dead. I stared at the ceiling. The steady beep of the heart monitors suddenly sounded different. It wasn't the sound of me being sick anymore. It was the sound of a clock counting down. I silenced my phone, ignoring the screen as it lit up again and again. Jennifer, Jessica, Michael, the 83rd call, the 84th. They were just noise now. The silence in the room was heavy, but it wasn't lonely. It was the silence of an office before a big meeting. It was the silence of a war room. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting to be rescued. I was waiting for my lawyer. Susan didn't knock. She pushed the door open 40 minutes later, and she wasn't carrying a flimsy floral bouquet or a get-well-soon balloon. She was carrying a heavy leather briefcase in one hand and 2 large black coffees in the other. She looked exactly as I remembered her from my grandfather's funeral. 63 years old, hair silver and severe, pulled back tight. No jewelry except a watch that probably cost more than my yearly rent. She was wearing a charcoal pantsuit and an expression that suggested she was walking into a hostile deposition, not an ICU. Behind her was a younger man in a sharp suit carrying another briefcase. She set one of the coffees on my bedside table without a word. Black. No sugar. You look like shit, Maya. Not cruel. Clinical. But you're alive. That's a start. The younger man positioned himself by the door, silent and alert. Susan sat in the visitor's chair and crossed her legs with the precision of someone preparing for battle. This is Marcus Chen, she said, nodding toward the man. A state attorney. He works with me. Everything you say in this room is now protected under attorney-client privilege. Understood? Understood. She gestured to my phone, still lighting up silently on the table. Shoni. I unlocked it and handed it to her. She read every text, opened every voicemail, clicked through to the Instagram post, watched it all with the emotional investment of someone reading a contract. When she finally set the phone down, she looked at me with something that might have been pity if it didn't look so much like recognition. How long have you been the bank? The question hit like a slap. Not, are you okay? Not, what do they want? How long have you been the bank? Since I graduated college. Maybe before. I don't even know anymore. Susan nodded slowly. Quantify it. What? Give me numbers, amounts, dates, everything you can remember. Marcus pulled out a laptop, fingers poised over keys, and that's when it started pouring out. $900 every month for 7 years, auto-transfer to my mom's checking account for her SUV payment, the car I've never been allowed to drive. Marcus typed, $12,000, my sister's brand development trip to Bali. She called me crying, said she'd lose her sponsorship if she didn't go, said she'd pay me back in 3 months. That was 2 years ago. More typing. $4,100, Dad's credit card debt, He said it was from Mom's medical bills. I found out later it was from a fishing boat he bought and never used. The list went on and on and on. The more I spoke, the lighter I felt. Like each number was a stone I'd been carrying, and speaking it aloud made it vanish into the air. College tuition for my sister's business degree that she never finished. The down payment on their house that was supposed to be a loan. The emergency vet bill for a dog that wasn't even mine. The wedding fund for my sister's engagement that lasted 6 months. Every birthday where they gave me a card and I gave them a check. Every Christmas where my gift was the promise not to ask them to pay me back. When I finally stopped, my throat was raw. The room was silent, except for the sound of Marcus's fingers on the keyboard. Susan stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights below. "Maya," she said quietly, "do you know what a forensic accountant is?" "No." "It's someone who finds hidden money, traces fraud, builds cases. Marcus is the best in the state." She turned to face me. "We're going to build a ledger. Every transaction, every promise, every emergency. And then we're going to do something you've never done before." "What?" Her smile was thin and sharp as a scalpel. "We're going to collect." The first cut was surgical. Marcus had accessed my bank account with my permission, fingers flying across the keyboard. He found the automatic transfer to my mother, the one that had been running for 7 years like a parasite. "Cancel it?" he asked. I nodded. 1 click, $900 per month, gone. "Amazon Prime," Susan said, reading from a list Marcus had pulled up. "Your card is the primary payment method on 3 accounts. Your mother's, your sister's, your father's. Remove it? Remove it." 3 more clicks. We worked for 40 minutes. It felt like defusing a bomb. Every connection we severed, I waited for an explosion. It came faster than I expected. My phone, which had been dark for almost an hour, suddenly erupted, not buzzing, screaming. 15 calls in 3 minutes. Text messages coming in so fast the phone was glitching. "Maya, what the fuck did you do? My card isn't working. Are you seriously doing this right now? I'm stranded." Then my mother's voicemail. I put it on speaker. Her voice wasn't panicked. It was fury dressed up in concern. "Maya, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this little stunt of yours is unacceptable. Your sister is crying. Your father is beside himself. You've made us look like fools in front of everyone at this resort. You will call me back within the hour and fix whatever you've done, or I swear to God." Susan reached over and deleted it mid-sentence. "Don't listen to the rest," she said. "You already know what it says. Guilt, threats, manipulation. They're panicking because the machine is broken." "I feel sick," I whispered. "Good," Susan said, and her voice was gentle for the first time. "That means you're detoxing. That means you're working." Marcus handed me a tissue without looking up from his screen. "Maya, I need to show you something." He turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was a document, a loan application for a home equity line of credit, $175,000, signed 6 months ago. My name was at the bottom, but it wasn't my signature. "I didn't sign this," I said. My voice sounded far away. "I know," Marcus said quietly. "Look at the M in Maya. You write with a hard angle. This is rounded, feminine. Someone tried to copy your signature." Susan leaned in, studying the document. "The loan was approved," Marcus continued. "The money was disbursed to your parents' joint account. It was used to pay off their mortgage, fund your sister's last 3 business trips, and buy your mother that SUV you've been paying for." "They forged my name?" "They committed felony fraud," Susan corrected. and they put you $175,000 in debt while you were working yourself into heart failure to keep them afloat. The room tilted. I gripped the bed rail. "We have them," Susan said. Her voice was soft, almost kind. "But here's what's going to happen next, Maya. They're going to escalate. They're going to get desperate. And desperate people get dangerous." "What do you mean?" She and Marcus exchanged a look. "They're going to try to paint you as unstable," Susan said. "They're going to say your illness has affected your mind, that you're not capable of making decisions. They'll try for conservatorship." They would, Susan cut me off, "because if they control you legally, they control your finances again. They get the new account numbers, they get access, they win." "So what do we do?" Susan's smile returned, cold, calculating, beautiful. "We let them take the shot," she said, "and then we bury them with it." The silence lasted exactly 48 hours. On the third morning, there was a knock on my door. Not Susan, not a nurse. A man in a cheap suit with a clipboard. "Maya Reeves? Yes. You've been served." He handed me a manila envelope, made me sign, left. My hands shook as I tore it open. They were petitioning the court to declare me legally incompetent due to erratic behavior and mental instability following severe medical trauma. They wanted full control, medical decisions, financial accounts, everything. The supporting document was 3 pages of lies. How I'd always been impulsive, how my recent behavior shows clear signs of a breakdown, how I was a danger to myself. My mother had signed it. So had my father. Even my sister had provided a statement about my concerning behavior. The room spun. This wasn't a family fight anymore. This was a legal execution. Susan walked in, took one look at my face, and picked up the petition. She read it once, then again, then a third time. And then she did something I'll never forget. She laughed. Not a polite laugh, a real one, deep, genuine, almost joyful. "Oh, Jennifer," she said to the papers, "you absolute fool." "Susan, they're saying I'm insane." "They just handed us a gift," Susan said, her eyes bright. "Do you understand what a conservatorship petition requires?" I shook my head. "Full financial disclosure. They have to list every share account, every loan, every financial connection to prove to the judge why they should be in charge of your money." She set the document down and tapped it with one finger. "By filing this, they just gave us legal permission to introduce that forged loan document as evidence. They opened the door, and now we're going to walk through it with a wrecking ball." Marcus was already on the phone. "David, it's Marcus Chen. We need an emergency motion to dismiss and a criminal referral. Wire fraud, forgery, identity theft. Yes, today." The hearing lasted 4 hours. My mother wore her best dress, the one she wore to church. She kept crying softly, dabbing at her eyes with tissue. My father sat stone-faced, hands folded, playing the concerned patriarch. Jessica was in influencer mode, full makeup, designer outfit, looking like the dutiful daughter. They looked like a family in crisis. Susan looked like a prosecutor. She presented the loan document, had a handwriting expert testify, showed the bank records proving the money went directly to my parents. She introduced my medical records, the cardiac event, the 4 days I'd spent alone. She played the Instagram video, the girls' trip without the drama clip, on speakers, in open court. The judge was a woman in her 60s. She'd been stone-faced through the whole proceeding. But when Susan finished, she removed her glasses slowly and looked at my parents. "Mrs. Reeves," she said, "did you or did you not forge your daughter's signature on a $175,000 loan application?" My mother opened her mouth, closed it, looked at her lawyer. "Answer the question," the judge said. Her voice could have frozen fire. It was
We were desperate, Your Honor. We were going to lose everything. She would have wanted to help. She always... That's not what I asked. Silence. Yes, my mother whispered. But... Thank you. The judge's gavel came down. Motion to dismiss granted. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. Court is adjourned. I sat there, frozen, as my family's life imploded around me. My father wouldn't look at me. Jessica was already on her phone, probably deleting posts. My mother stopped at the courtroom door, turned back, and looked at me. Her face wasn't sad. It was rage, pure, undiluted hatred. You destroyed this family, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Susan stepped forward, putting herself between us. No, Jennifer, she said quietly. You did that yourself. The criminal trial lasted 3 months. My mother pleaded guilty to avoid prison. 5 years probation, full restitution. The $175,000 debt was transferred to her name. They lost the house, the cars, the lifestyle. Jessica's influencer career died when the story went viral. Turned out people don't want to follow someone who funded their luxury life with family fraud. My father lost his job when the firm saw the headlines. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town, the kind of apartment I'd lived in for years while paying for their mortgage. I know this because Susan keeps tabs. Not because I asked, because she knows I need to know they can't hurt me anymore. I kept the spreadsheet for a while, the one I'd shown Susan in the hospital. Every loan, every payment, every penny I'd given them over 12 years. The total was $347,000. I stared at that number for a long time. It represented my 20s, my early 30s, every vacation I didn't take, every dream I postponed. It was the price of being loved conditionally. I deleted it. Not because I forgave them, not because I forgot, because I didn't need to carry it anymore. I haven't spoken to them in 8 months. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty, if there's something wrong with me for not missing them. But then I remember that morning in the hospital, the Instagram post, the 127 calls that weren't about me. I remember that I almost died, and they were angry about the inconvenience. And I realize I don't miss them because I never had them to begin with. What I had was a role, a function, a job, and I quit. Susan calls me every Sunday. We don't talk about them. We talk about books, politics, her chases. She's teaching me to play chess. Last week, she told me she was proud of me. It was the first time anyone in my family had said that in years, maybe ever. I've learned something important. Peace isn't about having everything. It's about removing everything that isn't yours to carry. They always say blood is thicker than water, but I've learned that peace is thicker than blood, and freedom is thicker than anything. I moved to a new city 6 months ago, started fresh, got a better job, made real friends, the kind who ask how you're doing and actually wait for the answer. Last weekend, I went hiking, stood on top of a mountain, breathing in air that tasted like pine and cold and clean quiet. I'm not a fixer. I'm not a scapegoat. I'm not even a daughter in the way I used to be. I'm just Maya. And for the first time in my entire life, that's more than enough. If you've ever had to make the choice to save yourself over a relationship that was sinking you, know this. You're not selfish. You're surviving. And surviving is the bravest thing you can do. You are not alone. Your peace matters. Your life matters. And you don't owe anyone your destruction just to prove your love. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go. And sometimes letting go is the only way to finally breathe.